sponsored by DRN, industry-leading LPR marketing database solution.
Why your 5-mile marketing radius is killing your growth. Let's find out where your high-value customers are really coming from. Today our guest is Noel Peña from Digital Marketing Network. I'm your host, Brian Ankney, with Professional Car Washing and Detailing. Welcome to Shine Time. Thanks for coming in today, Noel.
Thanks for having me.
Car wash owners tend to focus on their immediate radius when they're looking at their marketing. You know, some 3, some 5. Tell me a little bit about why that might not be the best tactic if you really want to take your growth to the next level.
No, absolutely, and I don't want to be controversial about it because obviously it's essential, right, to tap into your market that's local, nearby. But one of the concepts that's always been in the car wash space is, and retailers in general, right, looking at that 3 to 5 mile radius is kind of the sacred cow of the marketing industry. Unfortunately, a lot of these retailers and car washes are missing an opportunity. And then, you know, sometimes they'll say, hey, well, Noel, we've tried to go beyond that threshold. We went to zip code rat, you know, we did the geofencing, and the strategies and tactics may have not necessarily matched what they needed to be, right? So it needed to be really dialed in, and the focus needed to have been really around the audience, not necessarily the distance. Because I think the quantitative data shows you that it's not the distance, it's the conversation or the connection to the right audience. And that's where we can look at expanding that radius in a comfortable way for marketers to feel like, you know what, this is actually worth a shot because I can look at metrics.
Let's dive a little deeper.
Sure.
I'm a car wash owner. You got my attention. I want to start reaching out to people outside of my market. I'm not my market, outside of my 3-mile radius. Where do I get started?
Sure. I think one of the things, as in with all marketing, we need to look at strategies, tactics, and outcomes, right? What is the strategy behind your marketing output? What are your channels? What are you trying to drive? The marketing strategy is going to drive the tactics. So when we're looking at an audience outside of that, we need to look internally and say, okay, first of all, what are our offers? Who are our core customers? What does our audience currently look like in our CRM? So if we look at our CRM, we examine the data and say, okay, our customer demographics look like X, Y, and Z. These are our customers. We know they resonate with our car wash. We know they have a good lifetime value. These are our tribe. These are our people, right? So that's the number one focus. The number two focus is essentially, what is our offer, right? So we got to figure out who are our audience, what is our offer, how do we connect the two dots, right? That's the fundamentals. I think a lot of marketers miss this. It doesn't, once again, getting back to the distance thing, it's not the distance factor, it's the connection to the right audience. And so you got to analyze data, look at that buyer persona, figure out who they are, identify who resonates with your business, and then start tracking and using data to extend that reach beyond the 5 miles.
Cool. Now, are you saying that I should be marketing to everybody that fits into what my tribe looks like that lives 8 miles away, or are we being more specific?
Be more specific. So that's a starting point, right? Starting point is we know what the audience looks like. And then we have to look at what the offer is. And now you break it down even further. So it's kind of a trickle effect, right? So there's a waterfall effect that starts in marketing. We got the offer, we have the audience, we have the offer. Now we have to figure out of the people that are 8+ miles, 10 miles, et cetera, where do those people fit in to matching this offer? Because we know they're the right audience, but not every offer makes sense for that specific audience.
Gotcha. So we're gonna identify. So let's just say I have that people that drive minivans, have 2 vehicles, have 3 children, are fairly affluent. Maybe they earn between X and Y, and that's going to vary by market. And they're 8 to 12 miles away. So I identify the neighborhoods. And so I want to hit those neighborhoods. Do I hit everybody in those neighborhoods?
You're looking at people that may look like audience similar to those, but it's really kind of the core, like to your point, right? We're looking at a very specific niche group. What is important to that group, right? We've talked about it before in previous episodes. You know, there's a certain message that's going to resonate with a certain audience. If I send you an offer, it doesn't match your needs. And at the end of the day, sales 101 is matching needs to the customer. You have to solve a problem for them. So in your case, we have a minivan, you have a family situation, you have a fluent neighborhood, et cetera. So we know demographically as a business, I have a specific offer that I want to make, whether it's an upscale offer or maybe it's a family plan offer. I need to identify and match those two together.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Now, I've heard you use the term distance data, and I think you're the first person I've ever heard use that term. I'd like for you to explain that to our audience. What is distance data and why does it matter?
Yeah. So distance data in the context of our conversation today is around LPR marketing data, so license plate recognition marketing data, where we're taking information, we're taking a camera at the car wash, scanning the street, and analyzing where people are coming from, like where this traffic coming from. And distance data analyzes that parameter, that area around beyond that threshold of the 5 miles, 7 miles. We're talking about 7, 10, 15, 20 miles out. And really looking at where this fits for the business, because at the end of the day, there's traffic patterns that come from those areas. Because right now, a lot of car washes are using the old mentality of 3 to 5 miles, and it's not their fault. That's what they've been given to work with, right? And the terminology, you've heard the red ocean philosophy, right? The red ocean. And for those who don't understand or know what the red ocean theory is, essentially it's a market that's oversaturated with businesses or offers or marketing, right? So there's oversaturation. So you've got your car wash, you've got a competitor up the street, two up the street, et cetera, et cetera. There's this big red ocean, people competing for the same traffic.
Too many sharks, not enough fish, right?
Exactly. So exactly. So you got this small pond, right, bloodied up from water. That's why they call it the red ocean. You're throwing a free car wash. Your neighbor's throwing a free car wash. His neighbor's throwing a free car wash. People become numb to marketing outreach. At the end of the day, they see free car wash. They'll take it. It is what it is. But it's not really the convertible business plan a car wash owner operator should use. So what we're looking at is, if you visualize, like, here's your wash, right? Here's your competitor's wash, and there's a circle around that extends out. That's what we're looking at. That's the distance data. That's the blue ocean. On the contrary to the red ocean, it's the untapped market, the potential market, right? There's where the gold lies. Because at the end of the day, while everyone's focused on this little area, you're looking beyond and you're trying to tie in data that's been scanned by your location saying, hey, Joe and family live 8.5 miles from my location. They pass by my car wash 3 to 5 times a week. That is a viable customer. And most washes miss that.
Well, let's talk about what that pattern might look like in the real world. I mean, I imagine, every city's a little bit different. Most cities are growing. Talk to me about a customer pattern, what it looks like, and kind of give our audience an idea of what they're looking for.
Sure. So customer patterns, essentially, when you're talking about LPR marketing, we're talking about capturing the frequency of passes at a location. The one thing that's unique to LPR marketing is essentially it's a very tangible, real-world thing, right? We know we physically scanned the license plate of a vehicle that belongs to XYZ address. And so we're tracking that and building patterns together and understanding from a marketing perspective is, if I'm building out my profile and I build out my customer list and my marketing outreach, I want to understand a couple of things. Who comes by my location multiple times? Do they meet the buyer persona that we talked about a moment ago, right? Are they my customer? Are they part of my tribe? And then how do I connect with them? Going back to the very beginning of the conversation, we understand our core business and our core customers resonate with certain type of offers and messaging. Mm-hmm. So we want to connect the frequency of passes to the offer to that audience.
Interesting. Let's talk tactics. I mean, we've talked a little bit about identifying where our sweet spot is, who our tribe is. We talked a little bit about knowing that they drive by 3 to 5 times a week. Whether they live 3 miles, 5 miles, 8 miles, 15, 20 miles. We know that they're driving by, which is what's important. Now, what do we do to get them in? Like, sure. What are the tactics?
Sure, tactics. So yeah, we talked about at the very beginning, strategy should drive tactics. So the strategy was we just mentioned. Now we have to understand what are the tactics that we're currently using now as a marketer or as a car wash marketer to outreach. Are we doing direct mail? Are we doing email? Are we doing social media, et cetera? What are we doing to actually connect with the dots? And a lot of people will do direct mail. They'll have different types of outreach for that, email, et cetera. But the one thing to understand is where your strengths are as a car wash. You understand what things work well for you and your type of business. And then for an example, we could take something as simple as email, because a lot of times people say, hey, direct mail is cool and I'll do it, but it takes a little bit of time to get off the ground, right? Like, I've got to create the ad, I've got to create the content, it's got to go to the printer, it's got to get mailed out, and then I got to wait for those things to get delivered, and then I've got to figure out when people start responding. So there's kind of a window there, right? Social media is the same way. Like, you put a social media ad out, unless you have an immediate call to action for a free wash or something, the trigger effect may be delayed slightly because of the format. On email, however, there is an opportunity as well. And I know you and I have talked about, and we actually had a guest on, talked about the challenges of email and cold email outreach. But one of the tactics that could be used to kind of test the market and test this data out is utilizing some offers to these audiences by warming up the audiences slightly. Now, what I mean by is, once again, going back to the very core of the conversation is understanding your customers. We understand the messages that resonate. Building hooks, so subject lines in these emails that would match to resonate with our customers, right? Building these out, and then using, and I don't want to use this term like everyone else in the world, but utilizing AI to help with this. And I'm not saying replace your email. I'm not saying create your email campaigns with AI. What I'm saying is build your email campaign around your customer base, your tribe, and then have it delivered to AI intentionally. You can get a custom gem, custom GPT or whatever you want to use, and have that really dissect your email and give you some insight of what's better delivery for your customer. Then you take that output. So now you've taken your organically grown email, you've tested against AI, you've kind of split tested internally using technology. And then you take that a step further and say, you know what, I'm gonna run my campaign to a small audience, a cold audience of traffic that's passing by.
Well, Noel, is there anything more you'd like to share with our audience today before we go?
No, I think that'll be it for today.
Great. Well, thank you for taking the time to join us for this Shine Time. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today, our guest has been Noel Peña from Digital Recognition Network. We hope to see you again on a future episode.